Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my research. And first of all, I would like to briefly introduce my lab. I joined the Department of Geography earlier in September of this year, and I'm currently leading a lab called Accounting and Policy for Land Use Sustainability, focusing in sustainable forestry and agriculture. And we have three scopes of analysis. The first scope is to focus on monitoring, prediction of the human demands, and the productivity of the land systems. And the second is to use the tools like a model or different types of life cycle assessment to quantify the impacts of these human activities, and also figure out a solution to mitigate their impact on biodiversity and climate. And eventually, we transfer these research findings into policy recommendation, hoping for driving actionable plans. So today, instead of showing the whole breadth of my different research streams, I'm going to give one example for a study that actually was concluded 3 years ago by my past organization. So research, as some of you may agree that research is not always exciting. So this is one of the examples that I really want to share today because it is one of the most exciting moments for myself that actually seeing the real world impacts from my research. Okay, so just to give you a global context for the carbon neutral agriculture, what is carbon neutral agriculture and how was that being approached in reality? So basically, two types of emissions leads to the carbon emissions from agriculture. The first one is the emissions during the production of different food products through applying fertilizers and also such as the manure coming from the livestock animals, right? And the second part, it's coming from deforestation and land degradation due to the land clearing for the agriculture. So eventually, how are we going to meet the net zero, given all these kind of inevitable emissions coming to meet our daily food needs? So there are some key steps that we think are very necessary globally as a strategy to reach the net zero. The first one is further stop the land clearing for the agriculture, stop deforestation and slow down the forest degradation, grassland degradation. And of course, reducing the consumption is important, such as shifting diets, and then further reducing the emissions from different production processes. And lastly, offsetting those emissions is the key to meet net zero, such as restoring the forest ecosystem. So at the global scale, it looks like the pathway, the strategies are very clear. But what about at the national level? So Denmark is a very unique country because it's one of the, I will not say the most, but one of the most successful agriculture producer in the world because it produces more than 3 times of the food that it can consume. And most of them are being exported to the rest of the world, the rest part of the EU. This is also because the advantage of Denmark as a country itself, similar to Hong Kong, Denmark is surrounded by ocean, which is given a great opportunity to set up different harbor for trade. So this is a perfect location. And more importantly, the high agricultural productivity of Denmark comes from 3 factors. First one, the farmers in Denmark, they're very well educated. They're not like the poor people population as in a lot of countries. And also they're highly specialized in terms of their occupation. And the second factor is the farmer-owned cooperatives model has been a long tradition since 19th century, and that has been very successful. And also, lastly, very important, Denmark is very into research and innovation in terms of technology and driving greener economy and greener development. But as I said, with 3 times production than they actually can consume, it has a huge environmental cost and also climate challenges onto their country. So 61% of the Danish land has been cultivated for production. And a lot of them are facing serious nitrogen pollution issues and also degradation of the peatland. And about more than a quarter of the Danish net greenhouse emissions has contributed by the agriculture activities. So at that time, about in the year of 2020, the Danish Agriculture and Food Council reached us at the time that trying to see that if they really want to reach the net zero in agriculture, what will be the possible pathway for them to achieve, because of they already been in such a world leading position in agriculture. They really want to continue to improve. And so that's why we started looking at the gross greenhouse gas emissions associated with the production process and the land conversion in the 2 different categories. And then we, by using a 2-step approach, that we first construct the emissions using the national inventory reports for different parts, and then we use the different source of tools, including life cycle assessments, a global carbon accounting model in agriculture to estimate the mitigation potentials, which is also the percentage reduction in the different categories, such as the land use change, such as the livestock production process. So basically, we use these 2 approaches to make sure the national greenhouse gas emissions number are consistent with our subcategory calculation. So here are some key research findings. So first of all, one very impressive thing that we found out is that by comparing Denmark's pork and dairy efficiency with all the other different countries, we found that they are very efficient. So this is a diagram showing the carbon footprint per kilo of the milk production, and the top showing the second type of the emissions coming from the land conversion, and the bottom showing the emissions coming from the production processes. And basically we found that Denmark ranking as a number 3 among all the developed countries. And with that, if you want to reduce the total production emissions from the country by reducing their exports, that means it will shift the production to other countries with lower productivity. And that means at a global scale, reducing their production is not going to be beneficial for the global greenhouse gas mitigation. So basically, that's one thing that we found, that this is not a good idea for them to reduce their own production. And then the second finding is that in the past research, the land conversion cost has been mostly neglected. And we found that for the case of Denmark, it's more than 2 times, almost 3 times more than the production emissions. So that we kind of pointing out the focus of the country, it should looking at stopped further utilization of their land resources and make sure the restoration of the degraded peatland and forest land are being able to offset the carbon emissions that have been produced by the other lands. And then we designed the different pathway to eventually meet the carbon neutrality in agriculture for Denmark. So we think that there are 2 most strongest technical pathway is through improving the feed conversion efficiency. That means by increasing the feed conversion efficiency can reduce the land for producing the animal feed. So that will largely free up the land for the crop production, for the feeding the animals. And those areas can actually be used for restoring the forest and also restoring the degraded peatlands. And the other processes, such as reducing the enteric methane generated by the cattle and improving the nitrogen and manure management, also including the fertilizer processes, are also very important. Okay, so this work was published in two different streams of work in 2020 and 2021. As I mentioned, the key lessons from our work showing that the nations cannot reduce the agricultural greenhouse gas emissions by producing less food, especially when they're very efficient, because that will shift emissions to other low productive countries. And the second of all, organic farming is not the solution because they have a very low yield. If you keep promoting organic farming, which is a very popular concept in Denmark, that's going to make you worse because it will expand to more land with low productivity. And also one thing that we're trying to point out in the previous slide is to synergy between increasing the food production, increasing the production efficiency, and restoring the degraded land. So by doing that, you can really offset the emissions coming from the production, the very intensive production. And lastly, as they are a very meat consumer country, they should consider more plant-based diets for health and for the climate benefits. So in early this year, so we actually don't know how our work in 2021 actually going, the direction. We're not really sure, but after 3 years of the negotiation among different parties, this year, a groundbreaking agriculture climate policy was released, a green agreement between the government, the environmental community, and the agriculture industry. They reached agreement. This is like a groundbreaking milestone. And what are the key elements in this policy? The first one is the livestock emissions tax, and the second one is incentive to reduce the nitrogen pollution. The third one is to promote the biodiversity and sequester carbon. So we found a perfect alignment with our previous research findings and policy recommendation. That is that instead of cutting the total production, you should continue to cut the per animal emissions. So that means you continue to increase the productivity. And the second one, provide financial aid for the farmers to further reduce nitrogen and manure pollution. And the last one is more important, is that to actually establish the initiative to restore the forest and peatland, eventually offsetting the emissions. So with that, this is the end of my talk. This is a very exciting example for personally seeing how our research findings actually getting into Denmark's final policy. But more importantly, I think that Denmark has been very successful in the private and public relationships, and we are very impressed by the education levels and also their commitment to green development. So we believe that that can be a great opportunity for other countries to follow their lead. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.